All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining this introductory session and training session for the Agri-SME digital finance platform, which has been developed and rolled out by the Global Agribusiness Alliance at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and in partnership with Artha Networks, Inc. As I mentioned, this is our third training session geared towards the West Africa region. We've had one for Southeast Asia, one for India, and into 2021, we'll continue to try and host these in relevant geographies. So if you have any kind of feedback for us or interest in bespoke training sessions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, Shri. A couple of notes on housekeeping, although I'm sure we're all overly familiar with Zoom at this point. Thank you in advance for keeping yourself muted throughout this training session. Although if you have any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself or turn your camera on when you're comfortable. We also want this to be interactive, so feel free to use the chat function throughout this session. And I welcome you all to introduce yourselves via chat as well. It'd be good to know who is in the room here today and how we can collaborate to make this Agri-SME digital finance platform a success moving forward. So feel free to pop your name and company or organization into the chat. And what to expect for today's session, we'll start with some introductions of the Global Agribusiness Alliance team. We'll do an overview of what the GAA is and what we do and why we created this Agri-SME digital finance platform in the first place. We'll give you a bit of background on the purpose of the platform and our plans for implementation and rollout. Then my colleague Shri will offer a demo of the platform, kind of a click around looking into what the user experience of this platform looks like from the back end. And we'll have lots of time for Q&A. We have kind of wrapped up these previous training sessions after about 40 to 45 minutes. So we may give back a bit of your time today as well. And of course, always open to follow-up questions over email. Hopefully that agenda suits. And in terms of the staff who's kind of working on this and rolling it out, I'm pleased to introduce you to the Secretariat of the Global Agribusiness Alliance. We'll start with our mighty director, Ruth Thomas, who's based out of the London office. Ruth is a champion of this platform and has spoken about it and worked to collaborate with partners on rolling it out over the last year or so, and is available for any support you may need as well. Myself, an associate for the GAA based in Singapore, and my colleague Shri. Shri, you're welcome to just introduce yourself.
Thanks, Melanie. Hi, everyone. My name is Shri. I'm an intern with the Global Agribusiness Alliance, and I'm specifically working on the Agri-SME digital finance platform. And it's a pleasure to meet you all. Thanks, Melanie. Back to you again.
Great. Thanks, Shri. You can go on to the next slide. All right, so for those who are not familiar, I'm pleased to introduce the Global Agribusiness Alliance. We do actually have a GAA member in the room who may want to speak to the experience of being a member of GAA, but just to give you a really high-level overview, we are a private sector platform of agribusiness companies working closest to the farm level. So our member companies comprise providers of finance, providers of inputs, growers, primary buyers, primary processors, those companies that are operating really closest to the farm level and have interest in improving their own practices to make them more sustainable, both in terms of kind of social sustainability and also environmental sustainability. So our member companies aim to improve their own sustainability performance and also as a collective contribute towards reaching the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We are CEO-led and embedded within an organization called the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, which is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, and has offices globally. We do quite a bit of work across a variety of work streams, including sustainable landscapes, water stewardship, rural livelihoods, as well as tackling food loss and waste. And this piece of work, the Agri-SME digital finance platform, falls within our rural livelihoods work stream. And I'll speak more to how it aligns with our goals on the next slide. Great. So the kind of mission or purpose of the Agri-SME digital finance platform is to connect Agri-SMEs with providers of finance to enable the flow of investment across the agricultural supply chain and into rural communities. The GAA developed an independent brief about a year and a half ago that really highlighted the gap in access to finance for this important layer or connective tissue within the agricultural supply chain. So within GAA, our membership is comprised mainly of larger sized companies, but they work with SMEs across their value chains and have an interest in improving the resilience of the value chains by ensuring that these actors are able to access finance as well. So this platform aims to make those Agri-SMEs more visible to investors and offer a place for them to connect, or almost as a matchmaking tool for that initial interaction to happen. So we know that this is a very kind of robust ecosystem of actors within the agri-finance space. And so we've looked to an array of strategic partners to make sure that we're kind of tapping into the existing resources that will ensure that this platform is successful. So we haven't built the platform from scratch. We've worked with Artha Networks Inc., which developed this online architecture for a variety of other sectors. And GAA partnered with Artha to create this platform, which is just for the agri sector. And Artha Networks Inc. also has over 100 investors that are already using their platforms that exist for other kind of sectors. And so I'll go into our implementation timeline in a bit. But the goal is to bring those 100 plus investors from the other platforms onto this agri-focused one. So really tapping into a network that already exists. So how does this work? Well, Shri will go into detail with the kind of click around and demo. But in short, Agri-SMEs become users of this platform and post requests for financing or deals onto a pipeline, and then investors also create user profiles and are able to log into the platform, see the deals that are made available by the Agri-SMEs, and then choose to interact with the Agri-SMEs that they might be interested in investing in. So that's a little bit of the context and the way that we see this working. Thanks, Shri. So a bit on the kind of background, we launched this platform in August of this year, and we have about 40 Agri-SMEs that are already uploaded onto the platform and using it. Our goal is within the first 6 months, so that puts us into February of next year, is to get 10 deals, 10 investable deals uploaded onto the deal pipeline. And to facilitate that process, we're offering free access and support to any Agri-SMEs that are interested in signing up. So a lot of these Agri-SMEs will come from the GAA member supply chains, SMEs within their existing networks that these companies work with to ensure the success of their businesses. But also we're really open to SMEs that are operating outside of our GAA member supply chains. And so we're working with a variety of partners such as Nourishing Africa, the Agripreneurship Alliance, to bring on some of those Agri-SMEs that might benefit from this as well. And so anyone that signs up within the first 6 months will get free access indefinitely to the platform. And we will kind of continue to engage more agribusinesses moving beyond the first phase. But after the first phase, starting in March, we're really going to focus on bringing the investors onto the platform. So we have currently 6 investors on the platform, and they really joined on their own volition. We haven't been heavily marketing this to that segment quite yet. But as I mentioned, we have been building partnerships with the investor community so that once there are 10 investable deals and kind of something robust for the investors to look at, we can bring them onto the platform and train them as well. We'll also do a stock take and refine the business model of how this platform is managed after the second phase. Great. And before I pass this off to my colleague Shri for the demo, I wanted to share briefly on the resources that are available to all users of the platform. We have a one-page kind of marketing flyer or high-level introduction to what the platform does and how to connect with it. There's a 10-step user guide that shows how to create a profile, how to post a deal, how to invite another company to join the platform. Some of the most basic functionalities within the system are highlighted in this user guide that has screenshots to show you how to do it, as well as a narrative that accompanies it. We also have a set of frequently asked questions on our website that we're continually adding to. So any questions, for example, that come up from today's session, which we more than welcome, we will add them to this FAQ list as well. So this is kind of a co-creative process, and we've been learning and improving the system as we go along. So any engagement that we can have with you all is much appreciated. And I'll pass off to my colleague, Shri, who can go into the user profile types and what the system looks like.
Thanks, Melanie. So before I take you all through this platform itself, just a bit of context on what are the different types of user profiles we have on the platform. So first is the Agri-SMEs or the enterprises itself who are on the platform seeking funds. And second type of user profiles are, of course, the investors who will be investing in these deals. The third type of user profile is the enterprise support organization. So basically, these are organizations who help bring in the SMEs onto the platform itself. So like Melanie mentioned, there are a couple of them already on the platform, like the FAO, Nourishing Africa, and other accelerators and incubators that we work with, who help us bring these SMEs onto our platform. The fourth type of user profile are the service providers who basically perform different functions to help in the entire system of running the platform itself. But for today's call, I'm just going to be focusing on the first three types of user profiles. So in the demo, I'll be taking you through how to create a user profile for the SMEs and how what does an investor or an ESO profile look like, and how can the SMEs post a deal, and also how can the Agri-SMEs interact with investors and other user profiles within the system itself. So if you just give me a minute, I will share the platform screen and take it from there. Okay, so if you go to invest.globalagribusinessalliance.com, so this is our website. So there are a bunch of resources in the website that you can access. So whenever you have the time, feel free to take a look at our website. But one most important thing that you might want to look out for is the user guide itself. So basically, you can download the user guide that Melanie was talking about from our website. Apart from this, like I said, there are a bunch of resources that you might want to just take a look whenever you have some time. So about creating the profile itself. So if you click on the join now on the top right corner of the website, so there are a bunch of questions and fields that you will have to fill up, like the company name, your first name, the email ID, like what business it is. So just basic information. So once you submit this registration form, we will have to approve your request in the back end, which typically takes not more than 3 to 5 business days. So once we approve the request on the back end, you can log into the platform with your email ID and the password that you've created. So once you have a profile ready, this is how the landing page looks like. So we created a sample company just for training purposes. So this is how a landing page of an enterprise would look like. I'm going to there are multiple functionalities on the left side. Like you can see, it's pretty intuitive. You can take a look at any of this when you have some time. But I'm going to take you through the most important functionalities, like how do you create user profiles, company profiles, and how to create a deal. So basically on the left side, if you look at my profile, so this is where you can create an individual profile for yourself. So basically, if let's say if two or three of you are handling your SME account on the platform, you can all create individual profiles for yourselves. So for instance, like it's just basic contact information like your name, your email, and there's also like you can also add your phone number, your LinkedIn profile. So how much ever you'd like to add your contact information, you're welcome to. So on the right side, if you see Melanie and Ruth also have their own accounts, and it's under the team members. So basically for your own enterprise, you can have more than one user profile if you'd like to create. So that's about creating a user profile itself. On the left side, if you see this bit called the company profile, so this is basically the company profile for the Agri SMEs itself. So there are a bunch of exhaustive fields in which you can fill in information from, the organization name, contact address, and if your organization is connected to a specific SDG goal, you can add that as well. And then just the basic business profile of when you started the company, what are the sectors you're working in, any other document that you'd like to add, the business summary. So there are a bunch of fields that you can fill in this part. One thing to keep in mind is that not all of these fields are mandatory. So you're welcome to fill in as many fields as possible. So generally, if you have a more robust filled in profile, it's generally easier for investors to understand more about what you're doing. But again, it's completely up to you on how much you want to fill this. So there are also tabs for filling in your financial information and uploading any document relevant to the financial information itself. So this is quite detailed. You're welcome to, like I said before, you're welcome to fill in as much as possible. But again, none of this is mandatory that you have to have these filled in. So deals, I will take you through this in a minute when I actually show how to create a deal on the platform. But once you do create a deal, this is where it pulls up. So you have a bunch of information around how much funding you're looking for, what is the potential exit time, what are you going to use these funds for, and a bunch of information fields on this note. So this is where all your active deals sort of pull up once you've created them. And there's also a tab for impact information. So if at all you're looking specifically for impact funding, and let's say there are impact investors who would like to fund this particular deal, then you can just add a bunch of detail on how this is going to create the impact, what is it that you will be doing, just for the investors to know that um, what exactly you will be doing in the impact investment side. But again, just the pointer to remember is that this is all optional, and you're welcome to fill in as many fields as you'd like to. So this is about the sample, I mean, the company profile itself. So if you remember the dashboard or the landing page that I initially showed, so there is a create new deal option here. So when you click on this is how a new deal information page sort of pulls up. So here there are three fields that sort of mandatory. One is the enterprise name, the other one is the operating cost, and also like what are you going to use these funds for. So apart from that, again, there are a bunch of fields on what currency you're looking for the funding in, and also what is the potential exit time you're looking in, what is the purpose of the requested investment, just a one-line pitch, and any other financial information that you'd like to add on to this. So once you fill in these bunch of details and you click save, then the deal is already added to the pipeline. So once the deal gets added to the pipeline, it will pull up in the company profile section I just showed you. So apart from this, there are a bunch of other functionalities, like for instance, due diligence. So basically, due diligence is something the investors can trigger. So let's say an investor is interested in investing in your Agri-SME, and they'd like to have some information around, some sort of information that or clarification that they require. So the platform gives them a bunch of questions or templates from which they can choose, and they can ask you a question or a clarification, and you'll be able to respond to the investors within the platform itself. So we have like an inbuilt messaging platform inbuilt into this platform through which you can connect and chat with the investors. um, and one more thing to keep in mind is that this platform is more of a matchmaking platform, in the sense that we are trying to connect the SMEs to the investors. But once both of you agree on a deal, once the investor agrees to invest in your SME, the financial transaction itself happens outside of the platform. So this platform is just to enable any matchmaking between the investors and the SMEs. Real transaction itself doesn't happen on this platform. So that's probably something to keep in mind as well. Apart from this, one other important functionality that might interest you is the network bit here. So when you click on this, so you will be able to view the investors on the platform, the enterprises, and the ESOs who are already on the platform. So one thing to keep in mind is that you will be able to view and connect with any Agri SMEs that is on the platform. However, when it comes to investors, the Agri SMEs can only view who are the investors. The investors will first have to make the connection with the Agri SMEs and not vice versa. So if an investor is interested in any deal, they will have to make the first connection with the Agri SMEs itself before the Agri SMEs can talk to them. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But otherwise, you can connect to other Agri SMEs from within your region or from somewhere else who are on the platform, and you can chat with them within the platform itself. So this is pretty much the basic functionalities of the platform. And if you have any questions, Melanie and I will be happy to take. And also, if you need any help in logging in, or if you're stuck somewhere, again, we'll be happy to help as well.
Thanks, Shri. And we did have a couple of questions come through on the chat. We had a couple of questions come through on the chat privately to me, and I think that they're really good ones.
Melanie, sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Melanie, I don't think we can still hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Michael, you said you can hear me? Okay, everyone can hear me. Great. Okay, I just wanted to say that we had a couple of questions come through the chat privately to me, and I just want to make sure those are addressed because I think that they were really good. So the questions were around visibility of user profiles. Just to make sure, you can hear me fine now? Okay, great. So one of the questions was about the visibility of user profiles. So all users in the system can see all users' profile information and can also see all the deal information that's been posted within the pipeline. So if you are an Agri-SME using the system, you can see other deals posted by other SMEs. If there is information that you want to keep private and only available to investors once they've expressed interest, then you will have the opportunity via the due diligence system and via the messaging system to communicate privately with investors about information you may not want to be public. But that said, when you hold more information back, then the investors won't be able to just kind of access that without asking you. So it may mean that your deal isn't seen as investable to them. It might be a little bit too simplistic for them to consider reaching out. So the more information that's provided publicly, the better There was also a question about, will this recording be shared? And yes, absolutely. We've recorded this session and we'll be sharing the slides as well with everyone who has registered to join this session. So we had more people register than attended, which is completely normal. So they'll all get the slides and the recording as well. I also wanted to mention an additional note, especially since we have some GAA members and related parties who have joined. So GAA members can trigger an invitation to Agri-SMEs in their supply chains to join the platform. And when they do that, it's reflected on the Agri-SME user profile that they have been invited by that GAA member. So if an investor is browsing the Agri-SME profiles, they can see who has invited that Agri-SME to join, which can be a signal to them that they are already plugged into a broader supply chain, which might be a stronger signal of them as an investable kind of entity. Same thing for other enterprise service organizations like Nourishing Africa or the Agripreneurship Alliance. They've already started triggering invitations to Agri-SMEs that they work with. So if you are an Agri-SME on this call and you're working with an organization that's helping you build capacity or tap into wider networks, you may want to share with them information about this platform so that they can join and help to facilitate those connections as well. And I see a question about what size of deal. So debt, equity, and grant are all possible through this system. We have already had investors that are grant makers join the platform as users. So that is one other option in addition to equity and debt. In terms of the deal size, we generally say that 2 million US is the upper limit of what can be what a deal size can be on this system. There's no real lower limit, so you're welcome to put kind of anything that you're looking for. Investors can see what other investors are tracking within the system. So multiple investors can collaborate in the system to co-invest on one deal. So it's not as if each deal necessarily has to have one investor. If you need, $40,000 for operating costs, one investor can invest $20,000 and another can invest $20,000. So it can kind of be split up that way. Of course, like Shri said, the actual financial transactions don't happen on this platform, but all those initial conversations can be facilitated via the platform. And what stage of development is the SME? So startups. So generally what we've kind of said so far is that we welcome any actively trading Agri-SME to join the system. So if you are kind of an entrepreneur looking for seed funding but haven't established your SME or startup yet, then generally we wouldn't allow you to join the system. It's really for Agri-SMEs that are already in operation. I should also mention, just because I know a couple of the members of this group aren't in the West Africa geography specifically, that we are translating this platform into Bahasa Indonesian, which will be complete by the end of this year, because there has been demand from the GAA members because of the Agri-SMEs that they work with to translate into Bahasa. So if you have any kind of requests for further languages you'd like this to be translated in, if there's adequate kind of appetite, then we've been exploring that as well. But for now, it's only available in English. And we would also translate the supporting materials. Any other questions from the group?
Hi, Melanie, Alec Haley from Coram Call here. Can I ask a verbal one rather than a chat one?
Yeah,
do you have thank you. Do you have a view on tenor of deals, and is there a sort of minimum maximum in your mind?
Yeah, so the maximum, as I mentioned, is about 2 million USD.
No, tenor, sorry, duration rather than size.
Duration. It's a really good question. I would have to say that I don't have anything in mind in terms of duration. The fields are open. There's no kind of upper limit to what you can kind of click for the maximum amount of time. It would just kind of be dependent on what the investors that join the system are looking for. But I can find information about what Artha Networks Inc. general recommendation is based on their other types of platforms. That could be a good indicator. It's a good question.
And sorry, as a follow-up question for me, how much have you got on there at the moment? I mean, is this the first sort of rollout, so there's nothing on there, or have you got some interest out there on the platform already and people having discussions?
Yeah, it's a good question. Not sure about what direct discussions are being had, but there are 3 deals posted already in the platform with about 40 SMEs having joined and close to 70 user profiles for individuals. We only have 7 investors currently on the system because our focus on the investors will happen after the first phase beginning in March 2021. But after that, we expect kind of an uptick in engagement with the deals directly. Hopefully that gives a good picture.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, maybe one more question. Are there any country restrictions other than perhaps sanctioned countries?
Yeah, it's a good question. Currently, no, there are no restrictions on that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Great. Well, any further questions, you're welcome to email us here at this info@globalagribusinessalliance.com. If you do create a user profile, it will take up to 3 business days to be reviewed and approved. Oh, we have one more quick question. It's a good one about fees. We do not take any fees from the transactions that happen as a result of this platform. We are looking at rolling out a cost to join the platform after the first 6 months and considering what would be kind of an appropriate fee to join the platform. But in terms of the actual transactions, there are no fees. As I was saying, if you create a user profile, we will review it and approve it within 3 business days. I think some of those on the line already have SME profiles set up, so be sure to check with other colleagues. If they've set it up on behalf of the SME, then they would need to trigger the kind of invite team member function, and then you can be a user within the SME that's already been created. Otherwise, we're available for support, and we hope that this presentation was, service providers do not request deals. Service providers respond to RFPs that enterprises and investors can put out. It was kind of beyond the scope of this training, but essentially service providers can serve as third-party due diligence providers, those types of technical support that may be necessary to help with the transaction or with reporting. And so the SMEs or the investors themselves would put out a request for proposals from the service providers who would respond to those directly in the platform. It's kind of how the functionality works for that specific user type. But for the enterprises, those are the ones that will be posting the deals. Thanks for these questions. Great. Well, with that, we thank you very much for your interest, and please feel free to follow up with us. Have a great rest of your day and week. Bye-bye.